Welcome back to the Non-Essential Podcast. I'm Steve Gibson.
And I'm not dead yet.
Yeah. You're bleeding. You're bleeding out over there slowly, but that's all right.
Yeah, I got a pocket knife for Christmas. I hope you all did likewise at home. And I hope you're playing with it right now like I'm playing with mine. I realized like something about myself. Like I feel like I've waited all my life for this like realization that I am an adult, so I'm gonna do all the kid shit I wanted to
do. My mom can't tell me not to play with knives now.
Yeah,
ouch! I cut myself.
That people were rightfully trying to explain to me like you shouldn't do that because it's dangerous, not because you're a kid, but because it's stupid. And like now I'm like learning it the hard way. Like I'm basically gonna be like, give me another week. I'll be intentionally putting my hand on a hot stove and shoving silverware into outlets.
Yeah, I'm at that other phase where now I have a kid, and now she's old enough that she's like 1.5 almost, and so she's walking around and climbing anything and everything and wanting to reach for anything and everything, including like burning pots on the stove and that kind of thing. So now I've circled back around to now I'm the parent mode where it's like...
Yeah. That scary moment when you left a room for a second and now your child's wielding a boiling hot pan. And
it's this constant balance too between like trying to remind yourself, because I 100% admit I do that thing where you picture like every horrible thing that could possibly happen, and your like natural instinct, at least for me, is to be like, don't do anything, just sit right there and never ever move. Don't touch anything or do anything your whole life. And then, of course, like you're balancing that with like, I want to let her do stuff and like get better, but she'll stand on like, she's got this inverted like arch thing. You can flip it one way and you stand in it and it rocks, or you flip it the other and they can climb it. And the other day it's right next to our coffee table and she was standing in it, like just rocking it back and forth. And it's like, you want to be like, all I could picture is her falling and hitting the exact corner of the like coffee table on her eyeball and like blinding herself for life. But at the other hand,
she's just being a fucking kid with no awareness, and you got a Mortal Kombat fatality playing in your head.
Yeah, and you got to find that like middle ground where you don't want to like you don't want her to stand up and you go diving in and grab her like, no, you might slip, but you do have to actually watch out because there are actual bad things that could happen. So,
well, I remember like if you like. Well, I don't remember. This is one of my mom's favorite stories, but I was too little to remember it. But it's like one of the only like clear visible scars I still have is under my chin, and I fell off of McDonald's Playland and split my chin open, and that was bad. And I was bleeding, and I was crying and shit like a kid would, but I just needed some stitches. But my dad, at the sight of me bleeding, panicked, threw me in the car, and drove so fucking dangerously that it was like way worse than me just falling.
Yeah.
Like my mom was like, "You're gonna get us killed. He'll be okay." Like he's
that
not
didn't go the way
out.
I thought it was gonna go. I've got a real good friend that I grew up with, and him and his dad was worse than him, but they both like his dad would faint at the sight of blood, and he would come very close. He'd get very woozy. And the best part is he spent the better part of the last 15 or 20 years being a firefighter and paramedic. So, but it's one of those things where like he couldn't stand the sight of blood before, but when you're working, it's like an emergency situation. That part of your brain kind of shuts off. You're doing what needs to be done, and I get that because my brain works the same way. But it was just always funny to me that he couldn't stand the sight of blood. Now that's kind of what he does all the time.
I always like that phrasing though. That's what, like, I get what people mean when they say it, but like I can't stand the sight of blood, as opposed to like those of us out there like, oh, fucking awesome. Look at all that blood.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm a psychopath. I don't get excited about it, but I'm just like, the like scientific part of my brain almost kicks in. Like, oh, well, you can analyze the like, how much is the blood? What's the splatter pattern? Where did it? Are there tracks? Can you follow?
What do you see when you look at the blood stain? It's like, oh, I see a beautiful eagle. But yeah, we're back. Sorry the hiatus was longer than we wanted.
I figured we'd take at least it was relatively convenient timing. If you don't follow us on Twitter, I don't think I talked about it too much on Twitter, but
we talked about it literally once, and then I think we both went into like vacation mode.
Yeah. My desktop computer that I said is going to die for like the last 5 years, it died. Like it's I think it's the motherboard or the graphics card or the hard drive or all of the above.
It's in that fun state where it's like, could be everything, could be one minor thing, but it's too expensive to know.
It'll do that thing. I can get it to boot to the initial, like the BIOS prompt, the blue screen and whatever. If I try to go farther than that, it attempts to do a Windows recovery and gives me some generic error. Mm-hmm. But I can see when I'm in the BIOS settings, it'll show me the temperature of my like various, components. And the CPU, like I thought it was my graphics card, but my main processor, it was running very hot. Not like gonna burst into flames hot, but hotter than it should be at. So it's just one of those. I spent the better part of the last like 2 or 3 weeks trying to decide if I want to replace it with a proper like desktop so I can play, cutting edge video games on it, or if I want to just get like a moderately priced laptop, something that's nice and that I can like do this show and take notes and write and stuff on, and maybe play some games.
You should build a moderately priced desktop that you can upgrade in the future. Yeah, but I'm still kind of like wrestling with like the laptop idea I like, because I could like take it upstairs and like if I want to write on the couch or do something like that, I can take it with me. But the desktop is definitely the better option if you want to play games, because you get way more bang for the buck there. So I'm still kind of, and then I was sitting there and I'm like, I've got this old work laptop that we replaced with a desktop at work, and like that'll work so we can at least do the show. And then I just spent the last like hour and a half fighting with it just to get it to record. So this is not going to be a long-term solution. These might be the lost episodes. They're a special feature on the Patreon. Yeah. But anyway, for that $100 a month tier. The technical difficulties combined with, the holidays, we just decided to skip ideally we would have recorded last week, but we had to extend it one more week because I hadn't come up with a replacement yet. But like I said, at least it was relatively conveniently timed, instead of being like, oh, we just took 2 weeks off for the holidays and now it blows up and we're going to be gone another 3 weeks. But I don't know, maybe that's inconveniently timed. Give it time. Yeah, we got a lot of show left. Well, and looking at our, I kind of logged into the back end of our podcast hosting site. I know you can listen to the show. Anybody listening, there's 100 different places. I don't think most people probably don't go to the Libsyn, the actual physical website. But I logged in there today for the first time in a while to look at the back end, just to kind of get a bearing on like what episode number we were on and double check that it was indeed my turn, which it is. And I noticed that our stats have been actually better in the 3 weeks that we've been away than they generally are when we're recording every week. Man, you guys are fucking assholes. Are you kidding? No, I'm not going to. I don't want to make it sound like it's a lot better when we think they're dead. No, they haven't quadrupled or anything, but they're noticeably. They were noticed. Now, I would chalk that up to holidays. More people are off and have time to listen to shows and stuff, and end of year there's probably the stats don't break down like actual live listens versus like services like Spotify re-downloading the episodes, so sometimes that comes into play too. But it was just funny to me. It's like I expected to log in and see it be just like a flat line, and it's like, it makes me wonder why we put all the work in that we do. We should just put out one episode apparently we're done. We did, no one to call it, because apparently 115 episodes was plenty for our audience. And they're like, okay, we're good. You guys call it a day. Just disappear. I think that's what should really happen, though. I don't think we should ever be like, this is the final episode. I think we should just... The old internet classic of just like, we're good, just gone one day. I was thinking that me and you mutually decide when it's the last one, but instead of saying anything, we just get to the end of that particular episode and then pretend like we're being murdered on air. Like, just at the end, be like, hey, who are you? What's that you got in your hand there? No,
no, don't come any closer, and then just cut it off, and that's the last thing we ever post. Which would be interesting, because then the theory is that we got murdered, but as we were bleeding out, we took the time to upload the show and post it. You know, rather than...
No, you do like the Fargo thing of like... So, like, somebody introduces it, like, out of respect for the dead, this is their final episode as they wanted it told.
Or we find some other people that want to start a podcast and we just pass it off to them without any explanation to listeners. Like, we act like we get murdered, then next week somebody comes back and it's like, hi, I'm Bill, and this is a non-essential podcast. And people are like, what the...
It's like when the Man Show changed hosts for no reason. It's just like...
Well, I mean, there was reason. Their hosts were complete dicks, but at least...
I mean, yeah, you're right. They jump into Joe Rogan.
Well, I didn't know he was a replacement, because, yeah, they're not trending in the right direction there, huh? But,
I don't know why I'm trashing Joe Rogan. I don't hate him as much as other people do. But,
well, I probably would if I paid more attention to him, but I don't. But
well, he's one of those. The problem with Joe Rogan is just sort of like he is just a dedicated platform for whoever he wants to talk to.
Yeah,
and like he's not, unless it's like something he really knows about, which is like pretty much like stand up and MMA. He like he'll just sort of let people go off, and he won't be like, and he's no different than the rest of the like news media in that regard. He won't challenge anything, in that moment.
And that's the other criticism I've heard about him is that he's so like, he'll have a guy on that's an expert in bare hand fishing, and he'll get really into bare hand fishing for a week, and then he flips. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with like,
there's nothing
getting
wrong
excited
with
about topics.
Fishing.
Yeah.
Bare hand fishing, those are the moments I like. Those are the clips I wish YouTube would give me instead of like...
Especially if you mean bare hands like the animal, like where you shove your hands into the hollowed out bear paws.
Bear paw.
And then fish with it. Like that's...
Yeah. Like that's the shit I would like listen to the Joe Rogan experience for. I don't want it for what YouTube thinks I want, which is just the constant, like every couple of months it will be like, hey, you watched an old MMA fight. Do you want to see him shred social justice warriors? No. Like, what? The fuck, YouTube? Get the fuck away from me, you weirdos.
Yeah. So anyway, that's our critique on people way more successful at this than us.
Yeah. People who understand podcasting way better than we do. If you haven't listened to the show before, what a time to join. But this is a show where we tell each other stories, sometimes historic, sometimes fictional, sometimes there's just no real structure to it at all. And this is another one of those times.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of those times. I've got a creepypasta today. A little bit different and more in the story is not so much different, but then different in how I approached finding it. I was intentionally looking for funny creepypastas, and not that this is like a comedy, like, oh, haha, he slipped on a banana peel and fell on the knife, nothing like that.
Fell on the knife.
Right.
That classic Three Stooges bit.
I regret saying that, because you just told me that you've been playing with your new knife, and after we record, you're going to slip on a fucking banana peel out of nowhere and fall on your knife, and it'll be like, I jinxed him.
That actually would be funny, because we set it up with the joke here. So, if I gotta go via knife,
you're muttering to yourself like, Steve's such an idiot. Slip on a banana peel. Whoa! Stab.
This actually would be the worst knife to, like, die from, I think, because it's very, very short, but very, very wide. So it's like an inch wide blade, but it's maybe 2 inches long. So
it's a shiv.
Yeah, it is, yeah. I'm going to prison,
Well, after you stab yourself by slipping on a banana peel, they'll charge you with this assault on yourself.
That sounds like prison code for killing somebody. Yo, you need to make that fucker slip on a banana peel.
Banana peel. Well, it's prison code for something anyway, but so anyway, this one's and I did what we both tend to do. I read probably half or 2/3 of the way through because I wanted to make sure it was something that wouldn't be completely
that spoke
awful
to you.
But I didn't read the end, so we'll see where it goes. And it was funny to me, but not in the way that saying it's funny.
It just turns into like tentacle hentai in the back half.
I should probably just read it. Well, it'll explain itself as we go.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So this is called The Expedition. I'm sorry, I don't even know who it's by because this laptop's such a piece of crap that I had to struggle just to like copy and paste what I could get to read it. So it's The Expedition. I'll put the citation in the post, so and we'll look it up on Twitter when I put it off. I'll make sure to credit whoever the credit is due to. Andrew Sullivan was a wealthy man and his wife and his son, a wealthy man with his wife and his son, before he made his billions from founding internet companies. His company survived the crash that took out his inexperienced competitors and thrived in the vacuum that they created. Time passed and Andrew and his family were happy. His son was growing up into a responsible, mature man. Andrew had seen what wealth had done to people, and he kept himself and his family humble. He taught his son that money was not the most important thing in the world, and led by example. Don't you love that most of the people that say money is not the most important thing in the world are the people that have so much money that they don't have to worry about money?
Yeah.
Like, it's very easy to say that, but like, money doesn't matter that much because we have a ton of it. Ah. Anyway. Andrew would donate his money, most of the time anonymously, to various causes, and he didn't spend his money on frivolous things like cars, planes, and boats. They lived in a house that
fucking kept it in jars in his yard.
Which is much better for the, as we all know, it's better for the economy. You're a more responsible rich person if you hoard the money yourself. They lived in a house that was large, but not larger than it needed to be.
But
they had a house staff. Right. They had a house staff, but they were treated more like family.
Oh, so fuck you.
Right.
Yeah, I constantly make my family clean my shit, you know?
Well, and then right after the line, it's not larger than it needed to be, but he had it fully staffed. It's like, well, then it was larger than it needed to be.
It was larger. Instead of, like, contributing your money to, like, actual, things, you're being waited on. Like, there's no, like, fucking, like, oh, yes, she cooks and cleans, but she's like an aunt to me. It's like, no, fuck you.
Don't forget, though, but he was raising his son to be a modest and humble person.
Yeah.
As he dealt with the butler and maid and nanny and chef.
This is like they set up the fucking rich dick couple in Parasite. It's like, oh no, they're good people, and they just want you to stay in the helper corner.
Andrew never wondered how long their happiness would last. He didn't want to tempt fate, but unfortunately, it was never his decision to make, which is why it's called fate. But it was around 9 p.m. on a winter night. Andrew's wife was driving home from a charity dinner. She was always cautious when driving on these roads, especially at this time of night when ice could easily form on them. You know, the icing hour. But that night, no amount of caution would help her as her car slid off the road and into the rocky valley below.
A little bit of caution could have helped her. Like, I guarantee it. If you drive spectacularly slow, you will not careen off that cliff.
Well, I mean, technically, there could be a point that the road's so icy that you could stop and it'll still traction. Slide. But then the amount of caution would be, don't fucking drive. Like, pull over and wait it out. So there is an amount of caution that could have prevented this, Andrew. Andrew's wife.
Andrew and your wife.
Fortunately, his house staff was basically other wives because they were family. Oh.
Yeah, thank God. Thank God I got these 15 other wives.
/ maids.
/ maids.
Yeah.
Wife maids.
Andrew was assured that his wife's death was quick. The impact would have killed her instantaneously, which would definitely make me feel better.
Are medical examiners ever, like... Would they ever be honest if it were the other way? Or they would go up to the person and be like, I promise you, she was in agony for about 20 hours.
Right.
It's like,
if only you had answered your phone when she called those 8 times, but you were busy.
You were busy with your 15 wives.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Maid wives. Sorry.
But he was assured that she was killed instantly. But her death was hard to take. No shit. He thought it would be easier for his son to handle since he had grown up.
Since he was rich.
Once you grow up, you don't really care that much about if your mom lives or dies. And at first, he was right. There was an emptiness in their lives now that Andrew and his son, and Andrew and his son tried to move on, even together. I don't know what even together means. Like, well, we thought about
maybe he was saying like
going separate ways,
even with each other. They couldn't. Like, it didn't fill the void to have.
Yeah, but no shit, because it's like, oh, the 2 of us couldn't fill the void that the 3 of us had, which is why it's a void. But I get it. I mean, you're sharing.
They
your
just
sadness.
lost wife number 13. You gotta give them some slack.
Several months passed, and the pain faded slowly, which, I don't know. I think it would be more than several months if I just lost my wife, but eventually, I get what they're saying.
I give all my recruits 72 hours.
But the pain faded slowly, only to be replaced by a pain felt nationwide. That day, the Twin Towers fell.
Jesus fucking Christ! What? Fuck you! Are you kidding?
There's a reason that he throws us in here. This is the setup for the next part. Andrew's son answered the call, like many during that time, and joined the Marines, like his father. Although we hadn't mentioned him being an ex-Marine at all.
But there was only one thing that hurt more.
The Twin Towers falling.
That is just like... there's just something. I don't think it'll ever be appropriate to use the fucking Twin Towers as like a plot device.
Not a plot. Like if you're directly like if your story revolves around that, like this is the story of a person that survived, being buried alive, then certainly you got to reference what happened. But being like, yeah, Bill was having a bad day. Little did he know we were all about to have a bad day.
Right.
When the towers fell.
Well, it's like there's just something kind of, it's really cheap to deflect, you're at a point in the story, and we're already breaking it down too much. I should just let you talk, but I'm not going to.
It's been 3 weeks. We've got pent up criticism.
But, you're trying to build up this personal trauma, and instead you deflect with that with a national tragedy.
That's the thing, is it would have probably been actually more effective to just be like, he was so distraught, he didn't know what to do, he was listless, he ended up enlisting in the Marine. You don't need the Twin Towers to justify the Marine scene. Well, yeah.
Unless this turns into him, in fucking fighting ghosts in Baghdad, which is my story. So that better not happen, because that's mine. Copyright me.
So Andrew's son answered the call, blah, 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 Marine. From then on, Iraq was more than a place on the map in the news. Andrew prayed daily for his son, but the news reports were not helping. More soldiers were killed by an IED on a daily basis.
I was assured by many politicians during that time that everything was okay.
Okay.
And under control, so I don't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Well, he received letters from Matt describing his life as an infantryman in Iraq. Andrew cherished those letters, and he kept them in a special wooden box. Which is, again, I get it, but it's funny because you're implying that there's other people out there that would get these letters from their son and be like, God damn, another boring letter from my son in Iraq.
Will you
throw it on the
just
fire.
Record a goddamn video for once? So much reading.
It was late in the summer when Andrew watched as a black car with government plates pulled up his driveway. An officer in a dress uniform stepped out of the car and walked to the front door with an envelope in his hand. Andrew's heart sank, and when he answered the door, he was almost in a trance as the officer spoke, apologizing for the bad news.
As the officer said, "You're now recruited. Welcome to the army, son." Andrew's
Your son is deserted. You're being brought in his place. So I'll just skip the rest of this paragraph because it's all just word. His son was dead, and here's the envelope. The thing that I found funny about, I can say it now because we've kind of hit the beats I was waiting for. Would I say, and like I said, this was found under like it's just a general search for like comedy, and I feel like I'm hoping this was intentional, but it's very much written like every generic summer movie you've ever seen in your life, like. You mentioned like the Parasite thing, like, oh, there was this happy-go-lucky, super successful tech family. Then the mom died in an icy car crash, and the son was killed in Iraq with a black car coming up the drive. And so I'm hoping that that's the whole point of all this being this bad, is that it's like very much playing on the like just cheesy. We got to hit all these like setups. So I may be giving them
and throw in 9/11.
11, right. I may be giving this author more credit, but that's kind of how, like, and I'm not saying like, oh, I think this is the most biting satire ever written, but like, that's kind of how it's coming off to me, as like the most generic setup ever.
Literally hitting like every beat you could for like in another world, this is a setup for just yet another generic like direct to DVD Liam Neeson movie.
Not even direct to DVD, because all these are the scenes that I can pick out of like Oscar-nominated films. Because it's like, oh yes,
it could, but because it's like all happening
all
at once,
together, yeah. Oh,
like,
certainly, yeah.
And it's like it's so like cheap and flimsy. Like I'm just waiting for like, okay, at what point does he go on a rampage to get revenge on ICE?
ICE.
ICE crashed into the towers. We gotta fucking take it out. And you're the only one who can.
I don't have many skills, but one of them is battling ice. I do have a lighter.
You've
taken also an electric blanket.
You've taken my wife. You've taken my child. But I have a lot of hair dryers.
Andrew came back from the funeral service in silence. The envelope seemed to stare at Andrew from the table. Oh, I skipped this part. He never opens the envelope because that's dramatic. I don't know if that'll come into play later or not, because I didn't get that far when I was reading it.
He opens it up. It's a fucking goatsy.
Sorry, I'm scrolling here. Along the many other things with this shitty laptop is that I have to use the touchpad, but the scroll feature on it doesn't work. So that's fun.
What's funny is I guarantee you your phone would be probably more effective than this laptop.
Yeah. Except I can't hook my USB Yeti microphone fancy up to my phone, which has a built-in microphone anyway, so it wouldn't matter. But anyway, came back from the funeral in silence. The envelope seemed to stare at Andrew from the table, and it filled him with dread knowing he couldn't have been there to comfort his son in his final moment. Which he kind of alluded to that was probably a improvised explosive device. So I guess he's saying it. He's sad that he couldn't have been standing next to his son when he got blown to pieces. Like,
yeah, well, no, he wanted to comfort his son in his final moments, so he wanted to be just out of range for the explosion,
pieces back up,
and then just loosely, be like,
loosely arrange the pieces back into the shape of his son, and give him a hug, like you're in a better place now, Johnny.
Just keep telling him, it's fine. They'll grow back. As he's
you're gonna make it back home, and you're gonna get that ranch and those dogs and the ostriches that we always talked about.
Sick fuck, Andrew.
Weeks passed. The funeral service was long over. The condolence cards stopped coming. Andrew was alone in his house, surrounded by wreaths and flowers from friends and family, which must have been really fucking expensive wreaths if they lasted weeks, and he's still surrounded by them.
I feel like, do you think at that point, do people kind of just write you off? Like, if you lost your wife and kid, do people just he's fucked. There's no bounce back. Or you're afraid that
he's a jinx. You're like, don't get close with me, damn it. I want to live.
I really hope he restarts far away from us.
He actually does probably what I would do. At least from, again, I didn't read the whole thing, so I should hesitate to say that. Yes. He collapsed and tears streamed down his face. Eventually the tears dried, but the grief remained, not just for Matt, but returned for Andrew's wife, who he forgot about during this whole ordeal, apparently. The pain and anger grew and overwhelmed him. Andrew began to drown his memories with liquor and questioned the point of his existence. After months of binge drinking, God, that would be a trip too.
Months.
And he's a billionaire, so you know you're drinking some good shit. Like, you're not just
true.
You're not drowning your sorrows in like Busch Light.
Oh, good. Yeah, we're talking months here. You'd get bored. You would wonder how many fucking Miller Lights would it take for me to just be trashed and broken.
I think what I would do is buy one of every beer I could possibly get my hands on and see how many of them I could make it through before I just died of alcoholism. And and he outlasted. Good for him. Drowned his memories with liquor. After months of binge drinking, Andrew sobered up enough to have an epiphany. Buy more beer.
I never had a kid. Fuck.
Damn it. When did I start drinking? Shit.
Jesus Christ.
Sorrow and self-pity were getting him nowhere. It was a party life. It got him probably farther than he was before. And it was time to move on. Not just move on, but be a better person because of it. He decided to abandon his sheltered life and began to explore the world. Not just for pleasure, but for knowledge. And the more exotic, the better. So I like this idea that he was a sheltered, unknowledgeable, unworldly billionaire IT guy.
He invented the thumb drive, and that was it. That was his plan.
It literally is
just 50-year plan.
Yeah. Andrew took the time to better himself. He learned multiple languages in his travels. That not only benefited him, but his companies as well, which he still owned after months of binge drinking. He still did not buy lavish things, but he enjoyed his money. And again, why throw that in? It's like, he's not frivolous, he's just different frivolous. Yeah. He's the acceptable frivolous.
It's the type of frivolous where you put an aura of nobility around it, but it's still just as fucking privileged and
yeah. If anything, I get probably more annoyed by the people. It's it's one thing if you have a bunch of money and you're like, here's my 8 Lambos. It's yeah, that's excessive. Right. But the people that are I don't go in for worldly things. By the way, I spent the last 364 days out of the year traveling to exotic locations and learning.
Staying in hotels nicer than 90% of the population's huts.
Because I am an educated person.
Can't expect me to wallow with riffraff.
Andrew would avoid going to where the tourists stayed, and he sought a real experience to learn the natives' custom. God, that's gross too. Just phrasing it that way. I want to learn these silly natives' local custom. I mean, I get what they're saying, but yeah. It is all written very much from that, white, entitled perspective. This took him to places where few dared to travel, but the risk was well worth the reward. He would hear stories and legends of people, creatures, and places, some too incredible to believe, but seemed to be based on some truth. Andrew became a collector of these stories, and often the relics that they were about. So now he's turned into the villain.
I'm sorry, this
Indiana
is
Jones.
such a long fucking setup.
Yeah. Well, the funny part is, I don't know if you've looked it up or not, but I think we're about halfway through or better. So it's it's one of those stories that has a really long setup, and then it's and then he went on this trip and it ended bad because of a monster. The end.
I'm waiting for and then his best friend died and he had another relapse in alcoholism, but no, then he bounced back from that one too, and now a plot happens.
So he became a collector of these stories and the relics that they were about. From them, he found that there were truth to myths and legends, and he was slowly becoming obsessed with one in particular. There was a temple that had many names. It depended on where you heard or read the tale. No matter where you saw or heard it, the tale was always set in the mountains. The Himalayas seemed the most logical location, because you've all heard of that mountain. In the tale, the temple contained the ultimate knowledge, and if it was true, knowledge that would give him absolute power.
Unlimited power.
Which it seems to be something that he would likely be very interested in, given how you just spent half a story describing how he's the good rich guy that's humble and doesn't want things. Andrew focused all his energy to make this tale a reality. He poured funds into all avenues of research, from scientific to paranormal. Within a few years, he was ready for his journey. The expedition to the Himalayas consisted from everything low-tech, like the native Sherpa. I love that they describe Sherpas as low-tech.
The native Sherpa.
They're people. People aren't tech, for one. And for two, the Sherpa are used because those people are so fucking good at what they do. That'd be like
It's a type of car.
Yeah, that could be.
Like the Hyundai native
maybe that's
Sherpa.
What Sherpa, yeah. To the high-tech, like up-to-the-minute satellite mapping and tracking. Andrew had hired the best of the best at mountain climbing, survival, guides, medical staff, and security. They had helicopters and every state-of-the-art vehicle designed to conquer the snow and ice, but they would learn that nature conquered all.
This would be so much better, like, approach from, like, the Moby Dick framework of don't tell me anything about Andrew, and then just have somebody on these expeditions
learning about it as
you're... Yeah.
I'm picturing this, like I said, they've just basically spent all that time creating a Uncharted villain, and Nathan Drake's about to like bust in and
murder all of his people.
Yeah, but he'll do it with like some kind of mildly funny quip, and we'll be like, "Oh,
that's why we're okay with it." Yeah. See, Indiana Jones got by because they were Nazis, and who gives a fuck what they think? But Nathan Drake, he killed a lot of people who were probably very confused why they were dying.
But he was funny when he did it, so it's okay.
I'm sure the guards were yucking it up when, like, there's some missions in those games. Man, we're getting off track, but there's some missions in those games, like in the intros, where it's like you're breaking into a bank or something, and he'll just chuck a guard off a cliff. And it's like the guy's like doing a perfectly normal job.
Legal job,
He's not some like darknet mercenary.
I see I've only really played all the way through 4. Like I said, we're way off topic here, but anytime that kind of happened, then some later point they'd reveal, be like, oh, but that security force was really in the pocket of this evil person. It's like, that doesn't make the guard evil. For all he knows, it's a regular guard
I'm in the
job.
Pocket of evil people. I work for a fucking corporation. Like,
right.
Don't throw me off the roof, please. Like, I'm still unaware of it.
That explains the knife. You gotta protect yourself from Nathan Drake.
I've been waiting for some fucking smarmy fucking asshole with a good haircut to fucking choke me out and break my neck and whip me into a brick wall.
So for the first few days of the expedition, smiles were wide on everybody's face, but they faded as the terrain became more difficult. The one Sherpa, apparently... Oh no, they're using it plural. Strike that. The Sherpa laughed to themselves as the monstrosities their employers promised would make their... What? Oh. God, that's an awkward sentence. The Sherpa laughed to themselves as the monstrosities their employers promised would make their journey easier were frequently becoming stuck in the ice. So basically, he's saying like all the fancy equipment was unnecessary,
slowing them down.
Yeah.
And unwieldy and that kind of climate.
So now he's John Hammond. I mean, he's really flipping like through, like I said, every kind of character archetype that you can get.
Mm-hmm.
Several hours were spent digging out these vehicles so that they could progress a few yards before getting stuck again. The days they spent digging out their machines dug into their supplies as well. And the valley they entered made the turbulence too dangerous for the helicopters to fly through. Maybe they should have flown the equipment to that point then, and then started from there. They were forced to send them back to base camp. The glacier the expedition was traveling on... Was it a glacier, or were they in the Himalayas? Or are there glaciers in the Himalayas? I don't know.
It started as the Himalayas, but then...
They ended up in Antarctica. They're like, fuck, we took a wrong turn.
Global warming, it melted them down, so now they're just glaciers.
The glacier the expedition was traveling on was a mixed terrain of hardened ice thousands of years old and fresh soft snow that had been falling since the morning. The combination caused their vehicles to sink in the soft patches of snow as they drove and be shredded by the ice. Within a few days, their expedition was down to just one of their vehicles, which was now barely limping along. Maybe it shouldn't have legs. The expedition had replaced the vehicles they lost with pack animals that they got from Walmart. But they couldn't carry as much as the machine, so they had to decide what other equipment to leave behind. And the loss of their vehicles also meant the expedition was exposed to the cold, harsh winds, because nobody packed tents. The cold weather didn't just bite, it gnawed at the expedition as they walked, as they set up camp, as they slept. After a week and a half of travel, so they've only been out there like a week, like 10 days, and they're still like, well, fuck, we had to abandon everything. Let's keep going. They were greeted by a calm day that morning. It was still cold enough to give anyone second thoughts, but not enough to deter Andrew Sullivan. I think that's the first time they've mentioned his last name. Oh no, the very first sentence they did, I think. Anyway. When the last of their vehicles broke down, Andrew climbed out and continued on foot without a word of complaint. The expedition stopped to rest despite Andrew's protest when they found themselves surrounded by masked men in furs aiming rifles at them. One of the Sherpa explained that they were...
we have to keep going. With a gun in your face. We need total coverage.
One of the Sherpa explained that these were bandits and they were here because every movie needs bandits.
Ice banditos. As the Sherpa would say, I'm sure.
Iceritos, yes. Andrew spoke to them in their own language and explained to them his journey. They laughed at him for believing in legends. The bandits suggested that he turn around.
Give me your money.
Yeah, pretty much. You should probably turn around, but not until you give us all your supplies and clothes.
You know what? Give us this equipment that you've proven you can't fucking move.
Yeah, I mean, like, just follow the trail that way, guys. All the good stuff's back there. Andrew tried to reason with them, but was given an ultimatum by the bandit chief. Give them what they asked for, or they would take what they wanted from their corpses. That's generally the implied threat, I think, when you have armed bandits.
The art of the deal in its purest form.
Andrew pleaded with the bandits and approached their chief with promises of cash that would be theirs if they would just let them leave. Their eyes lit up once they heard that money was involved, and the bandit chief demanded to see the money, which Andrew agreed because he kept it in his wallet, apparently.
There's so much fucking shit in this story. Like, this is the first creepypasta where I've really been like, there's been ups and downs, but this is the first one where I'm like, this pacing is terrible. Like, you have like 5 different stories here, dude, and you tried to combine them all into this one boring dipshit named Andrew.
Well, Andrew agreed to show him the cash, but instead of cash, Andrew pulled out a pistol from his pocket and fired 2 rounds into the bandit chief, and quickly fired into the other bandits that were closest to him. The mercenaries Andrew hired immediately opened fire and killed the rest of the bandits.
Fucking what? What about him up to this point made
he's flip-flopping between being the bad guy and being Nathan Drake.
A goddamn action hero. It's like, now you don't want to do that. Bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, here's my money that I obviously, anybody would believe I'm carrying up a fucking ice mountain with me because...
Yeah, and I was ready to get mugged. Yeah,
we had to leave stuff behind because it was heavy, but I kept my cash.
The guys had to explain that there were... And hold the fuck up. They're ice bandits? Like, how...
They live in the ice forest, man.
How lucrative is that? Like, How many fucking people do you get to rob in the fucking...
One expedition a year, I guess, but...
What? This is the stupidest fucking story we've ever brought to this dumbass show.
Boys, we're eating food this week.
Hey, one dumb white boy, but it was the wrong white boy.
Fuck.
They fucked with the wrong one guy to show up here in 10 years.
Again, wouldn't like the more plausible setup there be like the Sherpas turned on them because they were luring?
They were desperate
people?
for food. Yeah, like they were like, "Hey, you ran us out on this expedition. Now we're fucked because your dumbass equipment got us stranded."
Or they were just villains all along, because wouldn't that be way more effective, like, specifically luring rich people out somewhere and taking their stuff instead of just, like, hanging out in the...
Well, you would take them for everything. So you would bring them... You would bring them out all the way until they ran out of resources for you to take. And then once they have nothing more to offer, then you would kill them.
Right.
Like, yeah, like... But that would be also... pretty fucking racist of this story to
that's true, but
to assume that anybody's just like looking to take advantage of it. I like it better when it's like this is straight up George of the Jungle shit, where the locals are just like this dumbass. Unfucking believable,
okay.
Dude. Like,
so, hold on, don't worry. This is going somewhere too. Okay. Anyway, blah blah blah. Fired.
So he smoked this entire crew of bandits.
But he gets a quip off here or something, because as the life faded out of the bandit chief, Andrew explained to him that he had come too far to turn around now. Andrew called for his physician. The physician thought Andrew was injured when he called for him, but it was just time for his medication. I need my Flintstone chewables, Doc. The truth was that it would soon be Andrew's time to go. Several years ago, he was diagnosed with lung cancer. But he kept that to himself so it wouldn't affect his companies.
So now he got really good at the fucking quick draw. He's a goddamn Red Dead Redemption character now. Because that's what happens when you get the cancer.
He secretly moved funds to research a cure, but that eventually became research for means to hold the cancer at bay so he could take this journey. And I like that it was lung cancer, because that's the most plausible thing to be suffering when you're climbing up a fucking mountain that increasingly takes oxygen away from you.
Well, that's just, yeah.
I'm sure you won't have any problems there.
Well, I mean, Breaking Bad, he made meth.
Andrew only had enough medication to last him a few more days, which is a problem because they already said they're a week and a half out, so...
Well, he's come too far to turn back now.
Yeah. I guess if he does find the ultimate power, he'll cure his cancer. If he failed, he had no intention of returning home, and running out of medication made no difference. But he was relieved to know that all his affairs were in order. And I assume he means the affairs with all the various
15 maid wives.
Yeah. Glad we both thought the same thing there.
Yeah.
Andrew took care of everything a year before this journey. Why are we explaining this? He appointed a new CEO for his company.
Because he's spitballing. Because there's no fucking plan, so you gotta, like, tie up every fucking loose end when you go to the next segment of the story.
Sorry. So he appointed a new CEO for his companies, so a CEO for the multiple companies, under the guise of taking a long-deserved retirement. He even made sure that the family...
You don't have to explain any of this. Like, he's rich. Mm-hmm. So he can do whatever the fuck he wants. Like, I don't need to know where the money all got tied up into and shit. Like, you finally focus the story on a location, and now you can't shut up about back home.
Well, he was nice enough to also take care of the families of the people in the expedition in case anything happened to them. So
thank God.
Yeah, he doesn't care. He's nice enough to take care of their families, but if they die in his mad pursuit, it's like,
The way this is going, let's have a chapter about the families. Who are they, and what boring shit did they get up to?
Right now, little Timmy was in geometry class, wondering what his dad, the Sherpa, was up to. Would the teacher assign... if he succeeded, he wouldn't have to worry about the medication anymore, or anything else for that matter. They were so close now, and Andrew could recognize the landmarks described in the tale about the path to the temple, that the ice bandits had never stumbled across, even though they were apparently right on top of it. It would be over soon, and when they reached the last of the landmarks, a cave to the temple, they made camp for the night.
I am fucking fuming here. Like, I just keep thinking about all this bullshit and, like, bringing 9/11 into it in the beginning. Just for setup, just for more setup for this goddamn story that's just absurd.
The next morning, there was some anxiety from the Sherpa. None of them had ever been this far, although that didn't bother them the night before, only in the morning. And they warned that they were entering an area that even the legendary Yeti would not enter. Andrew decided that he would... Yeah. I like that the Yeti's well known. They're like, yeah, that Yeti, you know, his name's Bill.
Yeah.
He's a pretty fearsome... He's a pretty fearsome guy, but he won't even come in here.
Just imagine some guy in like a Sherpa bar somewhere. He's like Barney from The Simpsons. It's like even he wouldn't come here.
Mm-hmm. Andrew decided that he would take in a small team that included himself, 2 of the Sherpa that were willing to go, a couple of pack animals, his physician, and a handful of security detail. I'm not really sure if it's normal to take pack animals into a cave. That seems like that would be hard to navigate. The team cautiously entered the cave, and Andrew found himself admiring the drawings that depicted the temple in question. Slowly and carefully, the team walked through the part of the cave that was a passage through a glacier. They noticed as some of the path crumbled away and fell as they walked over it. It was difficult to gauge the depth of the drop as visibility was only a few feet from their lights. The silence was suddenly broke by a loud cracking sound that was growing louder by the second. And Andrew and his team moved as quickly as they could, but it wasn't fast enough. Both pack animals, 1 of the Sherpa, and 2 of the security detail tumbled off the path and into the darkness. Their severance checks were mailed to the families right then and there. He PayPal'd them.
Pulling out his BlackBerry phone that got reception from one of his major satellites. It just keeps going like that. To just say he transferred money.
I like the thought of a widow finding out that she's a widow because a bank transaction showed up, and under the description it said, dead husband, here's $32 million.
Lol, husband died. Whoops, sorry.
Whoops,
lol, smiley face. Don't be sad, you're so pretty, lol.
What are you doing later? I could use another maid.
Here, money.
Anyway. They fell off into the darkness. It fell silent again before Andrew gathered what was left of his team and moved on. I like that too. They're just like, oh well. The path led them back outside, and in the distance was a wooden temple. So they probably could have just gone around. As they walked closer, they could see that the temple was untouched by the ice. There were flowers blooming at the entrance. It looked like somebody...
I'm appreciating Uncharted a lot more from this, because Uncharted has some rough pacing, in my opinion, too. But fuck, they get to the point.
It looked like somebody had been looking after the temple. There was no dirt, and the flowers and plants around the entrance appeared to have been trimmed. Andrew led his team inside the temple. The temple appeared to have been built over the face of the mountain, as the mountain provided the back wall of the temple. So I think he means like kind of carved into the mountain.
Yeah. Just the more he tries to paint the picture, the more I resent him.
In the center of the wall was a portal with a glossy surface like an oil slick. Andrew sat down his pack and walked towards the portal, despite his physician begging him to do that. Why is a doctor telling him what to do? It's like, in my medical experience, you should not walk into oily portals in temples.
This whole expedition's fine, but what you're doing right now could be dangerous to someone with lung cancer.
Andrew could hear a voice address him. Welcome, it said. You have traveled far.
It's a target.
Target.
Welcome.
Our meal of the day is a double quarter pounder with large fries. Would you like to order one? You have traveled far, and you have a question that burns inside you. There is no need for you to speak. I already know your question, but are you ready to know the answer? The physician watched Andrew as he stood there, almost frozen, staring into the portal, muttering to himself. A moment later, Andrew began to laugh, and laughed loudly and deeply. The physician cautiously walked up to Andrew and asked him, "What's so funny?" Andrew was still laughing when he turned to the physician and said, "Don't you see? We are all phone." End.
We are all what?
We are all phone.
Foam?
Phone.
Phone.
Yeah.
Like a telephone?
Yeah. I guess. It's capitalized. So I'm assuming that that's some, like, weird internet in-joke that we just sat through an hour of exposition to get to that I don't even get. And I'm imagining it's making you pretty happy, the satisfyingness of that ending.
Well, we'll see. I'm going to look up.
We are all phone.
And see what the fuck that means. Yeah, when you Google it, that doesn't say anything.
Yeah. So maybe it's not an in-joke. Maybe it's just...
What's the name of the story again?
The Expedition.
Even if it is like an inside joke payoff, like this is shit. Like this is a bad one. But
yeah, I don't...
Estimated reading time 8 minutes? How?
Because nobody goes any farther than that. That's why.
Yeah, if you just steamroll the words and don't absorb any of this bullshit, then...
Well, I'm just saying most people make it past like the second paragraph. They hit that 9/11 part and they're like, fuck it, I'm out.
That was unbelievable.
I like that our first episode back after a long break is wasting everybody's time.
Yeah, so sorry for the dead air here, but I'm really trying to like...
Yeah. And the best part is it's got like a 6 out of 10 average on the website.
We are all phone. Am I?
And I like that the very first comment I'm reading here says, "Third story I've read today with a funny ending," and then it hit me. It's April Fool's. And the ending was funny. I don't know what the fuck it's talking about.
Yeah.
It looks like it might be... Well, you played Portal 2, right?
Yeah. But I don't get that reference. But that's the thing. If you're doing a Portal 2 reference...
Oh, no, it's not that. Somebody explained it. Says it's a parody off of a creepypasta that ended with the phrase, "But who was phone?" And I think it was probably supposed to mean like,
are
who
you
was on the
fucking
phone.
Kidding me? You wrote all that shit to rip on one other creepypasta that probably nobody knew about? Are you fucking for real? Wow. Like...
But so many people are like, "Oh, that was hilarious." So apparently the other one must be...
Because the creepypasta community's fucking... The fuck was that?
I liked it. You know, to be honest. It had everything that you...
Yeah, you're right. I love the action scene. The Ice Banditos, that's a free point for any...
You caught me with that one because I didn't even I've played way too many video games, I guess, in my life that came up and I didn't even question it, and then you pointed out like, what the fuck would bandits be doing out in the middle of nowhere in the Himalaya? Like
well, yeah, that's your fucking lot in life.
That's a very poor business plan. Yeah,
you're done after a year when nobody shows up. Like,
you know what it was, and that's why they got killed so easily. It was literally they had just founded their venture as Ice Banditos, and they were about to pack it in. Like everybody's like, "This is stupid. We're never gonna make any." And they're like, "Oh my god, a billionaire. Let's get him." And then they're like, "Oh shit, did anybody remember the guns? Ah, crap." So
I fucking hate that. I hate everything about it. Like, usually we're pretty good at, like, olive branches and shit, but this is, like, trying to do a troll job, and the only thing that's, like, trolly about it is, like, the length. Because there's nothing, like, really... Like, there's nothing funny about it. It's just, like, agonizingly long. And it's only a successful troll because we have to do this show and you put me through it, you monster.
and after all the times, including this show, that we've talked about how it's like, yeah, we read it, and it's like, it seems like something that we'll be able to get content out of. Maybe I'll have to start reading all the way through.
No.
Except no, because then I would have skipped it, and it would have been more work for me, and we wouldn't have got to laugh about ice banditos and lung cancer and wives driving off cliffs. And
there's a lot of fun to be had here. Fuck this story. Fucking so stupid. Oh my god. That felt good. I felt like I got a lot of I blew off some steam there though.
Yeah, it's therapeutic.
It's been it's been a rough couple of weeks, so to really, just really fucking hate something.
Yeah.
With every part of you, it can be good for you. Yeah.
You didn't have to fucking sit here and try to read it off of a tiny Windows notepad window.
Yeah, but I did have to sit here and hear it while I have a knife in my hand.
That's true.
Which is showing a lot of resilience on my part. Yeah, I'm proud of myself. That'll be the new challenge. Oh, okay, we're at an hour.
What a way to start the year.
Yeah,
but
we're happy to be back. Thanks.
My laptop held, the recording held, so that's a miracle. But that might be all part of the troll too. Like maybe that guy hacked into my computer and made it work.
The ultimate troll would be you pretending like this never happened. From here, and I'll be like, "Where's your audio?" And it's like, "I don't have audio. I don't have a computer yet." And,
or you'll find out that I wrote that story because I remember at the beginning, I'm like, "I don't know who wrote this." I was
actually, by the time the Ice Banditos part came, I was like, the way this is dragging on and how much time he's had to get a story ready, I genuinely thought there was a chance you were going to be at the end be like, I wrote this.
I thought after 10 years you'd know me better than that. We've had 3 weeks and I didn't do shit until about noon today. And I was like, that
doesn't mean you wouldn't be above like dragging some bullshit out to like torture me. But that was fun. In its own way.
I know. I kind of want to, like, next time I get a new console and have to set up a new gaming account, I think I'm going to be Ice Bandito.
Ice Bandito?
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot.
It's just the fucking most, like, stock fucking, like... No, Andrew, it's Ice Banditos.
Oh, fine, I'll give you all my money. Let me reach into my wallet.
And they're still, like, cliche bandits. There's still dudes with, like, ponchos and sombreros and shit.
Yeah.
But it's fucking Arctic. Alright, well, also a great band name. We'll leave you with that, and, we'll be back next week with another story that probably won't be nearly as amazing. Bye.
Bye.